What are we doing about the world's poorest people? Why is it that with all the technology, managerial know-how, and investment capacity, we are unable to make a slight contribution in reducing the poverty of those who are disenfranchised? Why can't we have inclusive capitalism? These are the questions that C.K. Prahalad, the late C.K. Prahalad, asked. So, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that I have the answer to these three questions that C.K. Prahalad asked. And I'm going to answer these by introducing to you a developmental approach to doing business in the form of impact sourcing. The world that we live in is one. Globalization has created a world without borders. We have an opportunity to trade in services across the world. The internet is an enabler for this kind of trade in services. We have an opportunity through what is called business process outsourcing. What does this mean? Outsourcing occurs when a company decides to give its non-core activities to a service provider so that it can focus on its core capabilities. Now, when this company gives these services to another company which is elsewhere in the world, we call it offshoring. What happens in offshoring is that company A, which we will call the source client or the buyer of these services, will give its work to company B, which is sitting in another country, which is the service provider to these services. In essence, the company that is sitting in another country elsewhere in the world becomes the back office to the company that is buying these services. Now, there's a notion of follow the sun approach to offshoring of services. What does this mean? It means that a company in America, for example, can be sitting in America and offshores its services to Africa. Then what happens is, whilst the company in America is sleeping, the company in Africa can be performing these services so that by the time the company in America wakes up, the services will have been completed in Africa. This improves business efficiency, it improves turnaround time, and it improves the bottom line. You may ask how. Through impact sourcing, companies can be able to create a saving of about 60% of the costs. This makes a business proposition. So what I'm proposing is a different face of corporate social responsibility, so that as a business, you are still able to do your work, your functions, and you are still able to make an impact on the lives of the poor. The key thing to note is the impact in their lives, whilst making your profits. And there are advantages. I've mentioned the costs of about 60% savings. We also find that there are also advantages of a low attrition. Low attrition meaning a low turnover. There is also less of the labor strikes and labor unrest because a lot of the impact sourcing service providers lie in rural areas. So there's less chances of labor unrest in that area. This gives me an opportunity to share with you the models that are used for impact sourcing. One model is a company, for example, as I've mentioned in America, can give its work to one organization that is an impact sourcing service provider, and to use the jargon, ISSP. The second model is where a company can outsource its services to one company, which in turn will outsource its work to various other service providers. This is where micro work is being involved, where you can outsource your services to different organizations or impact sourcing service providers across the world. The other model is where one company can give its work to various impact sourcing service providers. How can this be practical? Here's an opportunity for you. For example, let's say you are a company that's looking for information on the ground. You want to know the data, the statistics. It could be for purposes of market research. Gone are the days when you will spend a lot of money and you would be dispersing a large pool of researchers who come from a different location to go to the location where you need data for. Impact sourcing allows you to use young people on the ground who can provide you with this data on their mobile phones. Think about the cost effectiveness of this. Think about the accuracy of the information, because you will be using people on the ground. Africa is a great example for this, because we have young people who are technologically savvy. They know how to use technology. They are ripe, they are willing, and they are able to perform services in the comfort of their own homes or in internet cafes across the continent. The continent is booming with internet cafes. So this is where you could recruit your workforce. So think about it. You could also recruit your workforce online whilst making an impact. Because for an African worker, the likelihood is that they are supporting 10 other family members. This is what we call the multiplier effect. Because for every job that you create, you are making a difference to the lives of 10 people, thus improving the livelihood of the people, so that they can move from a situation where they were able to only afford basics, such as food, to being able to afford education services, health services, technological services in the form of telecommunications. We know that the uptake of phones, mobile phones in Africa, increased by 5,000%. That is an opportunity. Those are the highest rates we've ever seen in the world. So why don't you as a business take this opportunity, make it work for you in a business sense, but change the face of social responsibility so that you're not just dishing money, but you're getting services for the money that you put in. It's a win-win situation, is it not? So I'm here to say, let's think about changing the way in which we do business. Let's add a developmental aspect to doing business, because we can be able to change lives. Now, there are various stakeholders that can be involved in this mix. Businesses themselves can be the buyers of these services. Non-governmental organizations and funders can bring the funding so that there can be training of these young people, improve their skills so that they can be ready to be able to perform these services. The government also has a role to play, because the government can create the necessary infrastructure to create an enabling environment for impact sourcing by providing the bandwidth, the broadband, to enable this trade in services through the internet across the world. The government can also see itself as a buyer of these services through having e-government initiatives where they buy these services from these young people or these internet impact sourcing service providers. There are many things that government can outsource. Even the notion of data archiving can be outsourced. What can civil society do? Civil society can also act as the lobbyists for impact sourcing. Ordinary citizens, like yourselves, can create awareness about this new form of outsourcing, because it calls for a move from traditional business process outsourcing, where it's all about one company giving work to another company, and that's where the deal ends, but to a level of impact sourcing where, yes, the services are still outsourced, but they make a difference in the bottom of the pyramid. Because the employees in impact sourcing are usually those people who are at the base of the pyramid. The people at the base of the pyramid are those people who live on less than $2 per day. So with this, their lives are improved. So as I indicated, this is about a different model to doing business, developmental aspect to doing business. It's about doing business whilst doing good. This is where profit meets philanthropy. So to the young people, grab the opportunity. Business, grab the opportunity. Government, grab the opportunity. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.